This is a huge deal for the San Antonio Spurs. Absolutely monstrous trade. San Antonio's looking for another young star to pair with Wemby moving forward. San Antonio got their guy. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So this was, according to all reports, this was the destination that De'Aaron Fox, where he wanted to end up. And there are a number of reasons for that. The way that De'Aaron Fox plays and his skill set, he's not a guy who just stands around on the three-point shooter and shoots a bunch of threes. Those are not his strengths. Of the years that he's been in the league so far, he's had a couple of good years shooting the ball in terms of percentage from three. But typically, his numbers haven't been great. This year, he's at 32%. That's not a great number. But his strength is getting into the paint and making things happen in the paint, making things happen within 15 feet. But Wemby, on the other hand, Wemby's not a traditional big guy. Well, there aren't very many traditional big guys. Let's face it. There aren't very many traditional big guys left in the NBA who do a lot of damage in the paint. I mean, Jokic does, Embiid does. But those guys are obviously few and far between at this point in the NBA. But Wemby is clearly a perimeter player right now. I mean, he's a jump shooter. That's what he is. So pairing him with a point guard who prefers to make his living in the paint, that's a good matchup. That's a good pairing for those two players. And the San Antonio has other really young players, developing players. I mean, Steven Castle can really defend. He's a willing passer. He's a competent passer. He needs to improve his shooting, but if he improves his shooting, which would be obviously very helpful to space the floor with the gravity that Wemby and De'Aaron Fox play with, he needs to improve his shooting. But, they have a core group of young guys now that they can shape moving forward in the next few years, and we'll see what they can do. Can they make a run? Can they overtake or compete with OKC and Houston? I mean, it's looking likely that they're going to have an opportunity to do that. So from the San Antonio standpoint, this is great. They traded in all those chips they had accumulated for De'Aaron Fox, and they're going all in with that, and that's great. That's what they need to do. And from Sacramento's standpoint, they didn't really have a choice. I mean, De'Aaron Fox wasn't going to re-sign in Sacramento. So in that situation, you have a star who you're not going to be able to re-sign. What do you do with him? Well, you got to trade him, and you need draft picks in return. You have to get draft picks. And Sacramento Kings got a ton of draft capital in return for De'Aaron Fox. I mean, they got multiple firsts, multiple seconds. This is what they need to do. Yes, they got Zach LaVine, and we'll see if that situation works out in Sacramento with Sabonis, LaVine, and the rest of that roster. But this gives Sacramento an opportunity to reset if they need to, if things don't work out the rest of this year, reset with a bunch of draft picks. And they have other players on their roster like Sabonis that can bring more draft picks in return. So this is positive. This is really positive for Sacramento as well. Let's look at the Bulls then. What exactly does this do for the Bulls? Now the Bulls Zach LaVine relationship has not worked out. It just has not. We've seen it play out for years. The Bulls weren't going anywhere. The combination of Zach LaVine and Vucevic, it just didn't work. And I'm sure that the Bulls are going to try and move on from Vooch as well. I mean, that's going to be a given, that they're going to be shopping him. Will there be any takers? Yeah, who knows? Vooch is actually having a pretty good year. But in terms of numbers, but let's face it, the guy just, wherever he's gone so far, Orlando, Chicago, I mean, the wins haven't followed him. So he'll if they can find a taker for him, he'll be on the move as well. But I think it was time for that Zach LaVine Bulls relationship to just separate, part ways. And this will be a new start for Zach in Sacramento. Let's see what he can do with it. I'm not sold on it. I wouldn't want that guy on my roster personally, but at least he has a fresh start in Sacramento, and we'll see what happens. I don't think they're going to make the play-in. I think they're going to be out of the playoffs, but entirely. But I mean, at least he has an opportunity to do something with a new franchise. He's back in his home state. You know, it's a fresh start for him. Let's hope for the best. But anyway, let's go over exactly what happened with the trade and what was included in the trade. So Sacramento receives Zach LaVine, 3 first-round picks, 2025 Hornets, 2027 Spurs, 2031 T-Wolves, 3 second-round picks, 2025 Bulls, 2028 Nuggets, and 2028 Sacramento receives their own second-round pick coming back to them that they'd previously traded away. And Chicago receives its own 2025 pick back from the Spurs. That's a first-round pick. Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and Kevin Huerter. The Spurs receive Fox and Sacramento guard Jordan McLaughlin. So that's the extent of that trade, and obviously the major components of this are the picks and De'Aaron Fox. Everything else is, secondary. It's more or less just making salaries work out, and that's why a bunch of different guys are included. I mean, I think the Zach LaVine thing moving to Sacramento, I think Sacramento wanted to get Zach LaVine because they want to see if they can actually salvage something this year. But the rest of the guys, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Huerter, I mean, all these guys are just included to make salaries work out. And we'll see what happens with their careers moving forward with their new teams. But it's going to be exciting. I mean, let's face it, this is going to be exciting watching the Spurs develop over the next 1, 2, 3 years and see if they can actually put something together that puts them in contention for the West. I mean, the West is really difficult right now. OKC is really young, and they have the most draft capital of anybody in the league as well, including the best roster, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting. This is going to be really interesting. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see some competition for OKC in terms of talent. I mean, this helps San Antonio immensely, and Houston obviously has a lot of talent on their roster too. And De'Aaron Fox, I thought that De'Aaron Fox would be a good fit in Houston, and that's obviously his hometown. But the pairing with Wemby is really positive for both he and Wemby and the Spurs. I mean, this will be really fun to watch. So anyway, it's my thought. It's on a Sunday evening. Boy, it's been a crazy couple of days. And I think there's a lot more to come. I mean, I think there are some more significant moves coming down the pike. And boy, it's going to be an interesting trade deadline this year. This has been a crazy one already, and it's not slowing down, I don't think. I think there's going to be more. But anyway, I hope everybody has a great night.